Hao Ji wasn't angry with what she said, he even had warmth and smiles on his face. Actually, we wanted to serve you well, we had no choice but to do this as you didn't reply to us even after we sent you 3 invitations. Sima Yu didn't want to deal with him and said, fine, there's nothing much to say. What's your motive for bringing me here? You guys didn't come here just to congratulate me. Be straightforward, I don't like to make guesses. I didn't expect young lady Yu to be such a frank and straightforward person. Hao Ji continued, I don't have to beat around the bush then. We invited you here today to ask you to join the Hao clan. He paused to see Sima Yu's reaction, but she didn't even have any reaction. As long as you join the Hao clan, I'll let you be the guest of elder, you won't be lack of worship and presence and you'll be able to be in a high position in Hao clan. Hao Ji said. Sima Yu remained aloof. Since you're in the lost place, you must have known about the descendants of the divine clan. Sima Yu lifted her eyes to look at him and said, I know. Hao Ji knew she was interested in the topic of divine clan when he saw her response. He continued, since you know about the divine clan, then you should know about the descendants of the divine clan. So what? Her voice was still indifferent, she didn't show any responses just because she heard descendants of the divine clan. Not only did she know about the descendants of the divine clan and seen it before, she even had connections with them. Do you know, Hao clan is the only descendant of the divine clan. Hao Ji shamelessly fabricated it. Sima Yu finally moved her eyes, but it wasn't because she was hooked like what he thought, it was because she was shocked by his shamelessness. They were the descendants of the divine clan? How did he have the cheek to say that? They could survive till this date not because they were the descendants of the divine clan, but because they were ruthless and sinister and imprisoned so many people. As long as you join the Hao clan, we can give you the secret way to change your blood ties to the divine clan, you will be able to cultivate at a tremendous pace in Lost Place. He thought Sima Yu's facial expression would change if he said that, but little did he expect that she lowered her eyes without intention of looking at him again. At this point, Hao Ji became angered but he had to suppress it as he remembered she had the skills of Silver Needle. Young Miss Yu, will you? Sima Yu didn't want to pay attention to him but he kept forcing her, she couldn't help but said, descendants of the divine clan. She dragged as Hao Ji's eyes became brighter, she switched her voice and said, not interested. Hao Ji would be wasting thousands of years of his life if he didn't realize that Sima Yu was toying with him. He couldn't suppress his anger any longer and shouted, Sima Yu, don't take my words for granted. Don't you already know that I'll take it for granted if you use this kind of method to get me here? Sima Yu mocked. Humph, inviting you to join the clan is honoring you. We still have other ways to make you compromise if you are not willing to. Hao Ji threatened. I will never join you guys. Sima Yu said firmly. I heard that you came here with your father and the others. Aren't you worried that they might be in danger when they're out? Hao Ji didn't sound confident when he said that. That was also the reason why he didn't appear right away when they caught Sima Yu. He could see that she didn't want to be involved with them from the way that she didn't accept their invitation. So they sent others to catch her accomplice as a backup plan. But in the end, they were notified that they didn't see any of them. They disappeared like steam. Sima Yu faintly said impossible and closed her eyes as she ignored him when she heard that he was going to use her family members to threaten her. She made herself clear. No matter what you said, would never agree to it. I don't want to see you right now. Hao Ji had his own pride since he had been the patriarch for so many years. He tried to persuade her earlier on just because she was gifted and had the skills of Silver Needle. Now that it had turned sour, he said with gritted teeth, aren't you afraid that you'll die because of this? Sima Yu ignored him. Humph, I'll give you 2 days to consider. Hao Ji ran out of patience and left after saying that. After making sure that he left, Sima Yu used her hand to pick on her ears. It was hard on her having to hear his nonsense. Is it going to work if you infuriate him like that? Mi-Er sat on her shoulder. People like him who don't have power, hate it the most when others look down on him. He will waste more time on me if I don't do that. And I don't want to waste time. Sima Yu said. Humph, Mi-Er humphed softly. Sima Yu patted his hair after seeing how uncomfortable he was and said, I know you don't like to be imprisoned here, but bear with it for the sake of master and teacher. Mi-Er didn't speak and didn't make it difficult for her anymore. Like she predicted, the Hao clan members came after 2 days. But this time, an old man with a white beard came. Young Miss Yu, have you thought about it? He asked. There's nothing to think about, I won't join the Hao clan. You guys better let me go, if not, my grandfather will never let you get away with it. Sima Yu said angrily as if she was restless from being imprisoned. The old man didn't continue further but sighed, since that's the case, young Miss Yu will have to put up with it then. He took out a pill and fed it to Sima Yu after he spoke, she felt giddy and fell into a coma not long after. At the moment when she lost consciousness, she heard an elder sigh and lamented, ah, what a pity. When Sima Yu became conscious, she was in a house but this house was cruder than the room. When she woke up, she realized she wasn't drugged with the pill previously as she didn't feel sick. She got up and went out, she noticed that the courtyard was very small. Other than 2 houses, the yard was only as big as 3 rooms. With the high walls surrounding it, she felt like she was being watched while she was in the prison of previous life. The door of the courtyard was definitely locked. Where are we? The place was too small and there was nothing to see, so she leaned against the door and asked Mi-Er while looking at the sky. If master and teacher were trapped here for 10 over years. Just thinking of it makes her heart ache. On an island. Mi-er appeared beside her. There are a few elite paragon men on this island. Sima Yu was dazed for a moment. Elite paragons? Weren't they half a step away from an emperor? Other than Feng Ruyen, no one else in the world could advance into monarch rank. It wasn't because they didn't cultivate or not talented enough, they couldn't advance because heaven didn't allow it. And for some like Feng Ruyen who took an alternative route to advance, she might not be the only one, but she hadn't come across any or heard anyone who did it. So those pinnacle paragon experts could walk freely around the continent. But it got harder to cultivate towards the end, especially when it came to the paragon rank and onwards. It would be harder to advance, so it wasn't easy for these pinnacle paragon experts to reach there. As the most important clan in the Lost Place, having a lot of pinnacle paragon experts in the Hao clan was normal. Getting these pinnacle paragon experts on the island to watch these people was such a waste, making little use of great talents. Moreover, there were a few of them, it was too unbelievable. But she wouldn't doubt Mi-er's power, it was just that she was curious what the motive of the Hao clan was by doing this. They definitely wouldn't send so many people just to watch these imprisoned people. She had to be clear of their motive if she wanted to leave. In this period of time, she had to be clear on one thing, whether master and teacher were on this island. She decided to go outside for a walk since the gate wasn't locked, to see if she could get a grip on anything at all. She walked out of the courtyard and saw many courtyards that were similar to hers. There were many rows of it and she wondered how many people lived there. She wanted to walk further down but she noticed that each of the courtyard was covered by a spirit barrier. The furthest she could go was 1 meter away from the gate as it was impossible to get out. Why put up a wall when there's a spirit barrier? She muttered as she turned around while heading back to her courtyard. She could go out of the spirit barrier but she didn't. She just got here and wasn't familiar with anything at all. If she acted hastily, not only would she not be able to check if master and teacher were here, she would also alert the enemies. She tried releasing her divine sense but realized that her divine sense was of no use here. I wonder where this is. With the spirit barrier imprisoning her and her divine sense restrained, she didn't know what was outside other than the courtyard she was in. Why don't you let me out to take a look? Mi-er proposed. Sima Yu knew Mi-er's capabilities, those people outside wouldn't notice any trace of him if he went out. But she rejected it after giving it a thought. There's no need for now, let's wait and see what they intend to do. For the next 2 days, she felt like she was being forgotten, no one came here for her. No interrogation, no compulsion. She didn't even see anyone at all. She stared at the gate for a while and walked out all of a sudden. When she was blocked by the spirit barrier, she attacked the spirit barrier in a flustered and chaotic manner. The noise quickly attracted attention and a few people from the courtyard by the side came out to watch. Young lady, don't waste your energy, you can't break the spirit barrier here. A fat uncle warned her. Impossible. I must tear this down today, I want to get out. She shouted at the fat uncle. Young lady, Fatty wasn't lying to you, this spirit barrier is really unbreakable. An elder from the other side persuaded. Why? They shook their heads helplessly without stating the reason. Sima Yu was restless, do I have to spend the rest of my life here? I don't want to. Young lady, accept it since you're here. One of them persuaded, we have never seen anyone escape successfully after being here for so long, but we've seen many dead ones. Grandpa, have you guys been here for very long? Sima Yu asked. Yes, so long that I almost forgot who I am. There was sorrow in the old man's tears. Grandpa, can you tell me about this place? Sima Yu asked. Sure. Since we're free for a chat, the 2 courtyards at the sides have been empty recently. Other than that fatty, no one is alive. But he is a mysterious person and doesn't like to talk. It's been a long time since this little old man has chatted with anyone. After he spoke, he took out a table, chair, a teapot and started to pour himself a cup of tea. Sima Yu knew it was modified when she saw his table because the size of it fitted the space just right. That elder smiled and said when he saw Sima Yu staring at his table, young girl, don't mind me drinking alone, it's too boring here and I can't send the tea over to you. Sima Yu stayed silent and followed him by taking out a chair out her front door and listened to that old man nagging about the dark life here. She slowly learned about the place here from that elder's speech. At least it was where she pictured in the map and knew where they were in the lost place. The island here didn't have a name in the map and no one in the island knew what this place was as well, but Sima Yu determined that this was a small island up in the north of Lost Place. It was simple. It was reported that only the north side of the sea had hundreds of jellyfish. And the hundreds of jellyfish would usually gather around the small island. It was impossible to escape because this place was surrounded by ruthless sea beasts. Some of them were even land, sea, and air beasts. Not knowing what Hao clan did to the surrounding of this small island that would gather so many sea beasts, those who wanted to escape could only escape via air, but they set up a spatial confinement. If anybody wanted to break the spatial confinement, it would attract those guys' attention. Once they were found out, it would be impossible to escape. For those that were lucky enough to escape from here, they would face thousands of sea beasts and would lose the confidence of escaping. Someone once made use of the chance to escape the small island while others were kicking up a fuss, but before he could fly out of everyone's sight, he was swallowed by the sea beasts that flew out from the sea. No one dared to escape after that incident. Sima Yu heaved a sigh after hearing these things. It was no wonder no one could escape from here, it was really hard to break through this place. How despairing would it be for Master if he was trapped here? Grandpa, so we can only stay in our courtyard? It's not only that, we can go out of the courtyard once in a few days to go out for a walk in batches. People would become crazy if they were trapped in the house every day, so how clan arranged for them to unwind once in a while. Do you know anyone else here? On this island, there's no difference in knowing them or not. Not knowing what the old man was thinking, he sighed with regrets. On this island, is there anyone who is reputable? There is. I heard that these two people are always thinking of escaping and even fought with some of the people on this island. I think their names are Su Jin and Golang. When Sima Yu heard Su Jin's and Golang's name, her heart jumped. Her masters were here. Are these people really strong? She asked. Of course, otherwise, those patrols wouldn't suffer so much loss so many times. The old man showed admiration for the two people. How many people would give up and leave after coming in decades? At least he wouldn't. Do you know where the two people live? Sima Yu tried to look normal, but only she knew how anxious she was at this time. I know, of course I know. The little old man pointed to the two courtyards not far away. They lived in those courtyards before. The two courtyards were not far from here, so it was convenient for her to find them. But before the joy in her heart was revealed, the following words by the little old man coldly crushed it. Unfortunately, they were taken away. It's probably for the worse. The little old man said regretfully. Why? Are they not living in the courtyards now? Sima Yu asked. They were taken away yesterday. Taken away? To where? Isn't this where people are imprisoned? They went to the torture room. The little old man put the teacup to his lips. After saying this, he placed the teacup down, the same amount of tea remained. Torture room, what kind of place is it? Sima Yu had an ominous feeling when she heard it. She was worried for them. The torture room is full of all kind torture tools. Anyone who commits a crime will to be taken to the torture room and handed over to the prison head. Sima Yu was taken aback. So what did Su Jin and Golang commit to be taken there? What else could that be, running away with people? Again? They have been in several times before and this happens every few years. Every time, they would go in and out. Will it be life-threatening or crippling? Not really. The little old man answered. Do you know why the Hao clan imprisoned us here? Why would they let us become crippled? If they become crippled, Su Jin would no longer be able to refine pills and Golang would no longer teach medicine to his students. Thinking about it, Sima Yu did not immediately become irritable. Otherwise, she would overturn the island immediately. By the way, Grandpa, do you know here the torture room is? I haven't been there, how would I know this? When will they be back? In 3 days. How do you know? Because it takes them 5 days to go in and out every time. If you have the opportunity, you can ask them. Maybe there is a reason. If we know this, we can protect our lives. Oh, little girl, you'll have to endure the loneliness. Here, even finding someone to talk to is a luxury. Many people have been tortured crazy by loneliness. You have a good mentality. Haha, I know someone will come save us. I am waiting. If there is hope, I can overcome this loneliness. No matter what, people should not give up on hope. Sima Yu thought it was rational too. She echoed his words and continued to ask him questions. The two chatted from noon until it was dark. Perhaps it had been a long time that he hadn't spoken to anyone. The little old man said a lot more than a talkative person would do. Sima Yu was a good listener because she wanted to understand the situation on the island. After the two left, she returned to her courtyard. Her face sank and the smile disappeared. As soon as she thought of master and teacher being tortured, she wanted to destroy the Hao clan. The Hao clan had better pray that the two of them were alright, otherwise she didn't know what she would do. Do you want to check the location of the torture room? Yes, be careful. Sima Yu did not reject his proposal this time. When Mi-er wanted to walk outside, he was blocked by a barrier from inside. How dare you block your grandfather, you are not worthy. Mi-er roared. He turned into thick smoke and sank into the ground. Although he dived deep into the ground, he was able to get back out. Mi-er went out for a whole night without discovering the location of the torture room and was almost discovered by an old guy. He wasn't afraid of confronting them, but worried that he would affect Sima Yu's plan. He found a place to avoid the old guy. What was a reason that Mi-er could not find the torture room? The island was neither big nor small, so there were a lot of hidden places. Mi-er had just arrived, so it was normal to find it. Even you can't find it. We can only wait. I'm sorry. Mi-er was a little discouraged. He thought he would be able to do it. Don't say silly stuff. Sima Yu rubbed his head. Since you didn't find it, it's probably not here. Not here? It's my speculation. Sima Yu said. Mi-er wanted to go again, but she stopped him. If it's on the outer islands, which there are thousands around it, how long will it take to find them one by one? It's a waste of time, and it's easy to get exposed. What are you going to do? Wait for someone to send the message. Was there such a dumb person? Mi-er didn't believe it. But by the next day, someone really came. Sima Yu quietly arranged a spirit barrier when the person came in. She asked Mi-er to put the person down without waiting for him to speak. Then she used her divine sense to retrieve all his memories. Then, she called out 1,000 resonants to pretend to be herself as she carried the course into the spirit pagoda. What are you going to do? Little Spirit asked when he saw her appear in the alchemy room, refining something to break the spirit barrier. Previous chapter. She told Little Spirit about the things that she needed to use, and Little Spirit immediately prepared those things for her. He didn't leave while Sima Yu examined those things. When he saw that powder that she had taken out, he asked, "This powder can be used to open a barrier?" Those people dust this powder on them when they enter. I'm guessing that this is the key to opening the barrier. Sima Yu said, at that time, the Yang clan used death aura as the way to open it. These people use powder, so it should be correct. I just need to examine what it's made of, then Master and the others will be able to exit the barrier. Little Spirit didn't speak anymore and accompanied her in the refining room for a few tens of days. Once she came out, she had already produced a lot more of the powder. When she left the Spirit Pagoda, she fused with me air and, with a shake of her body, returned to the image of the person who came in. Even her aura was exactly the same. She told Thousand Resonance to stay here. If needed, he could rely on the link between their contract to return to her side. Then, she took out the powder and scattered some on her body as she headed towards the barrier. As she passed the barrier, she felt a weak resistance, but she managed to exit smoothly. It seemed like her guess was right. This powder was the key to leaving. Based on this person's memories, those old coots would not pay too much attention to this place whenever they were cultivating. Unless some big situation happened, they wouldn't emerge. Furthermore, night just fell and there were a few more hours before those people started patrolling. As such, when she emerged, she didn't take the route that she usually did. Instead, she went the other way to head toward Su Jin's house. Su Jin and Gulang's courtyards were linked together. It was just that, every time they had finished getting tortured, they would be taken back to Su Jin's courtyard first. They said that it was to appreciate each other's injuries and let them remember the lesson. Only when their wounds had healed would they be able to leave. When she arrived at Su Jin's courtyard, the both had yet to return. The courtyard was pitch black, and she entered without a hitch. She examined Su Jin's courtyard. It was made in the exact same way as her own, but it had a light smell of blood. Her heart fell. Could it be that they were injured often? Without giving her much time to think, sounds of footsteps started to sound from the outside. She immediately calmed herself and hid herself into the darkness. She was obviously still in the courtyard, but one wouldn't be able to notice her if they didn't specially look for her. The both of them wore clothes that looked similar to her own as they walked in from outside, each supporting the other. The both of them were no longer able to move, and were dragged in all the way. They casually tossed them and they landed on the ground. Even though it was dark, she could clearly see how they looked and sense their aura. Although the both of them hadn't fainted, they were depressed and there wasn't a single inch of unmarked skin. Both of them were initially highly regarded, but had fallen to this state. Her tears started to fall and her rage was almost uncontrollable. Her chilling aura flooded the entire house and caused the winds to blow, attracting the attention of the people in the courtyard. "Who's there?" The two guards shouted in Sima Yu's direction. Sima Yu came out from within the shadows and looked at them with a murderous gaze. That dense killing intent caused Su Jin and Gulang to look over subconsciously. A crying guard? What was he doing? He didn't seem like someone they knew. "Are you under Hong Lai?" The two guards recognized her identity when they saw her uniform. "What are you doing here?" "Those who hurt them must die." Sima Yu icily said as she disappeared and, when she reappeared, she directly grabbed the person by his neck and broke it with a snap. His head spun 180 degrees backwards. The other guard reacted and wanted to attack her but he wasn't fast enough. Before he even managed to produce his spirit energy, a knife was buried deep into his heart. It took less than a breath's worth of time to kill the both of them. This happened quickly and her actions were clean. It directly stunned the both of them on the ground. The most important thing was that this turn of events caught them unprepared. Weren't these people on the same side? Why would he suddenly kill them both? After Sima Yu killed them, she dug into their minds. She raised her head and saw their dull state. They were close to each other now and she could see them clearly. Not a single bit of area on their faces or bodies were well. Many places had only bone remaining. Her tears flowed even harder. She knelt before the both of them and kowtowed, scaring them. Their eyes suffused with confusion. This person wasn't crazy, was he? "Master, teacher, I'm so sorry. I dragged you both down," she said reproachfully. You are." The confusion in their eyes turned to shock as they struggled to get up. Sima Yu hurriedly got off the ground and went over to support them. "Your wounds are too severe. Don't move." "You are. You?" Gulang's voice trembled somewhat. It had never even done that when they were being tortured. Sima Yu nodded. She released her fusion with me air and returned to her original appearance. "It really is you? What are you doing here?" Su Jin's voice was a little angry. "I am not the only one. Seniors are here too." With a thought, Jiang Junxian and the others appeared in the courtyard. When Han Miao Shuang saw the condition that Su Jin and Gulang were in, her tears immediately poured forth. Even Jiang Junxian and Su Xiaoxiao's eyes turned red, their expression murderous. "Senior brother and sister, master and teacher have been injured, so let's bring them in first." Sima Yu took out 2 stretchers and carefully placed them on the stretchers. "Eldest senior brother, third senior brother, you guys clean up their injuries." Sima Yu placed some equipment for cleaning wounds on the table. She saw that the 2 injured people were still in a daze and said, "Master, teacher, let's talk again if you're still confused. It will be a little painful to clean up your wounds, so I will need you to be unconscious first." As she said this, she took out a pill bottle and placed it under their noses. They fainted before they could say anything. "I'll leave the things here to you." She stood up and said to Jiang Junxian and Su Xiaoxiao. Both of them nodded as she and Han Miao Shuang went outside to wait. After an hour passed, Su Xiaoxiao finally opened the door and let the both of them in. When they saw the two people lying unconscious on the bed, the four of them clenched their fists tight. Let's destroy this place. Han Miao Shuang said. We definitely have to. We will make them pay in blood for the wounds they have caused to master and teacher. Su Xiaoxiao revealed a murderous expression for the first time. What use is there just to break this place? Sima Yu looked at the two who were wrapped up like mummies. This debt will be paid for by the entire Hao clan. The three of them were stunned as they nodded. As long as she said it, the Hao clan would definitely have no chance of escape. When they woke up, their wounds were already 70 to 80% healed. When he thought of what happened before they fainted, they immediately woke up and sat up from the bed. He even woke up Gulang, who was sleeping beside him. Old Su, we're not dreaming, are we? Gulang asked. Seeing how I am now, I know it's not a dream. Su Jin said as he hopped off the bed. He went out to the courtyard to find that there was nobody there at all. Gulang came out as well and looked at the empty courtyard. Is Yu and the others really here? I hope that we're just in an illusion. Su Jin closed his eyes. The days they had spent here were so torturous and they had already comprehended it fully. They didn't want their students to be trapped in here with them, with the possibility that they would never be able to escape. You have to believe in them. Gulang said, Yu, that child, never does anything she is not certain about. That she dares to come here means that she has a way to escape. She has come to rescue us. At this time, a guard walked in from outside. The barrier was completely useless against her. When she saw Su Jin and Gulang standing by the room door, she said excitedly, Master, teacher, you are awake? Yu? Gulang saw another unfamiliar face and cried out tentatively. Sima Yu nodded and returned to her original appearance. She said with a smile, it's me. What are you doing here? Su Jin stared at her. I participated in the Crimson Pearl Convention, then intentionally let the Hao clan capture me. The moment Su Jin heard it, he was infuriated as he chastised her. Do you know what place this is? Do you know how many people are unable to leave after coming here? How could you be so careless? In the face of his scoldings, Sima Yu walked over and said, it's precisely because I know what kind of a place this is that I had even more reason to come. Master, relax. I will bring you out of here. You. Master, you were trapped in here for many years because of me. How could I ignore that? Sima Yu interrupted him. If I had known earlier that you were living this kind of life in here, would have come even earlier. Sima Yu looked at them tearfully before swallowing the rest of her words. Alright, OL Su, things have already progressed to this stage and it's useless to continue scolding her. You don't have to pull such a long face either. Isn't it just that your student saw you at your most wretched state? There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Gulang teased him without hesitation. Su Jin pursed his lips and glared at him. Then he turned around and returned to the house. One did not have to fear a powerful enemy, but a pig-headed comrade. Gulang was obviously dragging him down. Sima Yu had called Jiang Junxian and the others out before she entered the house. Looking at the people who appeared from nowhere, Su Jin and Gulang were a little puzzled, but they didn't ask anything. Master, teacher, let me examine you. Sima Yu walked over and took their pulse. How long were we unconscious? Su Jin asked. 10 days. Did those people not come? Gulang asked, puzzled. Sima Yu naturally knew who they were talking about, saying, they don't have the ability to care about this place. What did you do? Su Jin asked. It's nothing much. I just made them busier so they wouldn't have the spare time to focus on this place. Sima Yu said, Master, you've healed rather well, but you have been wounded a lot these few years, and you merely relied on yourself to recover, so there will be some after effects. I'll help you recuperate once we're back. After saying this, she took Gulang's pulse and with her anxious look, she did not plan to tell them what she was going to do. Su Jin wanted to say something but Jiang Junxian cut in, Master, with your current condition, you should focus completely on recovering. Sima Yu looked at him with an encouraging gaze. Senior was still good at understanding others. Su Jin. Gulang remained silent by the side because Sima Yu's expression wasn't too good. I know the condition of my own body. Although it looks pretty serious, it will be fine with a bit of care. He withered under the look Sima Yu gave him and his voice got softer towards the end. However, Sima Yu didn't attack him with any words. She merely started to plan how to help him recover. Once she had finished inspecting the both of them, they asked Yu and the others how they thought of coming to look for them. Senior brother and sister have always been worried for you, but I have been rather busy these few years and did not have the ability in the beginning either, so I kept delaying before I was able to come. Sima Yu was guilty as she thought about it. Master and teacher had come here for her sake and suffered so much, but she had only come here now. Humph, you dare to run over here because you have the ability? Su Jin looked at Jiang Junxian, especially you. As the eldest senior, you did not take good care of your juniors and even came here to cause a ruckus with them. Master, coming to look for you is not causing a ruckus. Han Miao Shuang explained in a small voice. Then what is it? Su Jin glared at her too. Do you all have such little faith that your master is unable to return on his own? Han Miao Shuang and Su Xiaoxiao lowered their eyes, covering up their emotions. It wasn't that they were looking down on him. The truth was that, without the people backing Sima Yu, it would have been impossible for them to have escaped on their own if they relied solely on their own abilities. Master, what were you guys doing on the island? Sima Yu asked. They got us to refine multiple types of pills and so on. Then, they even wanted us to teach them our methods. Su Jin said. Those who were ground down for so long, eventually lost their resolve and obediently handed them over. As for us, although we were punished quite a bit, our minds hadn't crumbled yet. Master, we saw some people use your methods to refine pills when we were at the Crimson Pearl Convention. Did you? Han Miaoshang pursed her lips and she didn't finish her sentence. I didn't. However, we were always brought to a specific place to refine pills, so they may have been copied. Su Jin said. But that was an outsider. There were many who could not handle the tortures here and eventually compromised. Gulang said. Master, teacher, you used their torture as motivation not to give in, didn't you? Sima Yu said confidently. Su Jin smiled and didn't refute her words. Yu, now can you tell us what you've done these few days? Su Jin leaned on the chair. Alright. I didn't actually do anything, I just changed all the books in their treasure pavilion before setting the whole building on fire. Sima Yu laughed happily, so they're investigating the perpetrator right now and have no time to bother with us. You burnt their treasury? Gulang and Su Jin looked at her with shock. That's right. Who asked them to treat you that way? The treasury is just the first step. Sima Yu huffed coldly. How Clan, prepare to receive her rage. Previous. Su Jin and Gulang saw how she protected them, and their hearts were warm. It's a pity that we didn't manage to find a way to resolve the issue with your physique. Gulang said rather ruefully. He looked at Sima Yu with a gaze that turned to worry. How is your body now? Su Jin's eyebrows were furrowed tightly. They had come here this time to help her find a way to resolve her physique. However, they didn't manage to find any solution. Today, regardless of whether or not she was able to rescue them, the problem of her physique would perplex her. He saw how she had grown much stronger, and the issue with her physique would become more pronounced. What if they couldn't find a solution? What would she do then? Sima Yu didn't think that they would remember why they came here even though they had been here for a few tens of years. Up till now, they hadn't asked her how she planned to leave this place. Instead, they were worried about her body. Master, you guys can relax. I have a way to resolve this issue. It's just that I'm not powerful enough for now, so I cannot do anything. Sima Yu said. Really? Of course. How could I mess around with my own life? Sima Yu said. That would be great if so. Gulang and Su Jin could finally relax after all these years of worry. Yu, if it's possible, rescue all the others from here as well. Gulang said. It was only by being trapped in here together that they knew the kind of despair in their hearts. Everyone was an outsider, so they should help them if they could. Those few old coots aren't easy to defeat. Yu, are you confident? Su Jin asked. The pinnacle of the Paragon rank. That wasn't an easy rank to defeat. If they added on the network of the Hao clan, it wouldn't be that easy if they wanted to defeat them. Master, your mission during this period of time is to nurse your bodies back to health. Just leave the rest to me. You have to believe that if I was able to enter, I also have a way to get out. Your bodies are rather weak now, so don't worry yourself over other things. Sima Yu nagged. Su Jin glanced helplessly at Gulang. I never thought there would be a day where we would be fussed about like this. And disdained. Gulang laughed. But this feeling isn't too bad. Su Jin smiled lightly. He looked to be in a pretty good mood, and wasn't upset about being fussed over. You guys are all grown up. Gulang sighed. You speak as if we're so old. Su Jin pursed his lips. Although they were in a worse condition than before, they were still handsome and charming, with limitless prospects. Sima Yu looked at them pointedly for their narcissism and got them to stay in the house to recuperate. In order to keep them safe, she even got Jiang Junxian and the others to enter the spirit pagoda. She remained alone outside to observe the situation. After notifying Su Jin and Gulang, she left Floey and Little Dream behind and left the courtyard. Just before she returned, she secretly snuck into the treasure pavilion and set it on fire. As she left the place, it was still very chaotic over there. She kept away her murderous intent and transformed completely into the person. She looked over at the treasury but turned around and left without getting involved. There were many herbs inside this treasury along with the medical contributions of those who had been trapped and other things like that. Although these things were not as ancient as those outside, they were definitely not any less valuable. As such, when the treasury was on fire, everyone was anxious. Even those old creatures were frantic. Furthermore, this fire was extremely weird. No matter what they did, they could not extinguish the fire. A pinnacle paragon expert even brought over the waters from the ocean and emptied out half of it. However, even after the water poured down torrentially, the fire continued to burn. Sima Yu let it burn slowly, allowing the Hao clansmen to watch as their treasury slowly be burnt to the ground. She let them feel the heartache. The entire treasury burned for a day. By the time the fire was slowly extinguished, the treasury was nothing but ash. Was there a fire in this world that could not be extinguished? The answer was definitely negative. If that were really the case, that meant that someone was messing with them. The few Paragon experts raged and ordered those people to investigate immediately. Especially the few more powerful people who had made trouble recently along with those who had just arrived. Of course Sima Yu was one of the few who were investigated, but nobody felt like it was her. That was because she was too young and had only been here for a few tens of days. There was no way it could have been her. That was why those people merely came to her courtyard to take a look. When they saw 1,000 resonants sitting there obediently, they eliminated the possibility of it being her. Shortly after they left, Sima Yu returned to her courtyard and 1,000 residents could be considered to have fulfilled his mission. Sima Yu kept him into her spirit pagoda, then moved out a rocking chair and placed it by the door of her courtyard. She lay on it as she observed the activity at the treasury. An old man came over from the side and was shocked when he saw Sima Yu. Young lady, why didn't you come out recently? 1,000 residents had been here the past few days, so he had called for her for a few days but she did not come out. I was a little troubled a few days ago. Sima Yu gave him an explanation that didn't really explain anything. The old man saw her lounging about lazily and felt like she had changed somewhat. She wasn't as scatterbrained as before and had become more apathetic. Little girl, it seems like you've thought things through. He secretly clucked his tongue in wonder. This brat had this kind of countenance although she was so young. Just what kind of power had nurtured this weirdo? If not because her aura was really of an outsider, he would have thought that she was from a clan on this island. Sima Yu merely smiled. Her previous scatterbrained image was fake. Furthermore, she had now found her master and teacher, so she was obviously no longer worried or anxious anymore. Grandpa, why didn't those people catch you and interrogate you? She pointed her chin towards the direction of the treasury. The old man had begun drinking tea again. When he heard what Sima Yu asked, he clicked his tongue and sighed. Naturally, it's because they consider me to be an obedient one. The old man said, I've never stood up against them, so they naturally won't think of me when these kinds of things happen. You've handed over your arts? Of course. In any case, my skills weren't imparted to me by any decent master. He never made me promise not to teach anybody. Why would I let myself be tortured for nothing? The old man said without a care. Then what are you still doing here? Someone like him should be with the Hao clan already, right? I've handed my skills over to them but not my loyalty. Although the world is small, my heart is still my own. The old man chuckled twice, but his feelings were still complex. Sima Yu was moved. As she looked at his gaze, she was subconsciously filled with respect for him. Grandpa, if you were able to leave this place, would you return to your clan? The old man shook his head, I have no home anymore. I'd merely float with the wind if I left this place. Nothing holds me down, which is the only reason why I could remain in this place so freely, no? Sima Yu understood what he meant. He felt that he had nothing holding him down, so it was the same no matter where he lived. That was why he was captured, but his attitude wasn't bad. He was not driven crazy or to despair by loneliness or the lack of freedom. He didn't lose his good attitude either. However, not everyone here was like that. There were many who were only able to hold on because they relied on the concerns in their heart. Only by surviving were they able to meet them again. Regardless of which reason it was worthy of respect. Grandpa, if you have nowhere else to go, you can go to Heartbreak Valley. Being here, Sima Yu began to sway him. Those who the Hao clan had trapped here were all of good quality. If she was able to entice him to head over there, it wouldn't be a bad idea. The old man listened to her speak and did not interrupt her. When she had pretty much finished, he chuckled and said, Brat, you sound very confident that we'll be able to leave this place. Of course. Sima Yu said confidently, the Hao clan isn't able to cover the entire sky with their hand even in a continent like this, right? They will eventually meet their match. Look, their treasury was even burnt down, and their torture chambers might even be torn down next. Or maybe this island will sink. It would be better if a place like this didn't exist. This place can't be torn down just because you want it to be. The old man said slowly. Why not? Sima Yu felt like his words were deeper than they sounded. This place is the Hao clan's foundation. How could an important place like this lack a huge guard protecting it? The old man said as he casually drank a mouthful of tea. How could the Hao clan's foundation be here? Sima Yu was shocked. She initially felt like this place was different from other prisons and it turns out that this was the reason. It said that this place contains a location where one can wash the tendons and marrows of their newly born infants, changing their physiques and improving their talents. All the newly born children of the Hao clan will be carried here for their baptism. In the past, the Hao clan could not be considered to be superior in the lost place. However, they suddenly rose up later on and, apart from their despicable deeds, they also relied on the talents of their later generations. It's no wonder such an ordinary place requires the protection of a few pinnacle paragon experts. Sima Yu understood before glancing at the old man, this should be a closely guarded secret of the Hao clan, right? Grandpa, how would you know? It's natural because I've been here for a long time and heard bits and pieces. The old man laughed lightly, ignoring her prying gaze. Grandpa, how many years have you been left here? Sima Yu asked with curiosity. Around a few hundreds of years. The guards have changed quite a few times. The old man said. Sima Yu heard him say so before, that they would change their guards after a period of time. She felt like it would be unbearable to stay here for a few years or a few tens of years, but he had actually stayed here for hundreds of years. Grandpa, I believe that this treasury is just the beginning. The beginning of the eradication of a tumor like the Hao clan. She smiled at the old man. The old man didn't say anything, neither did he say that he didn't believe her. He merely sighed deeply before saying, if you are able to get us out of here, I will go to the place you told me about. All right. Grandpa, you better remember what you said. Sima Yu smiled. This little old man has never spoken falsely before. The old man was still that way. However, Sima Yu felt that his words were rather sincere as he spoke. The both of them fell into silence after that. Sima Yu waited for a moment and those guards who had walked past them earlier returned. In their hands, they captured a few people. It seemed like they were taking them in for questioning. Sima Yu stood up and said to those guards, "You've got the wrong people. Do not speak nonsense." A guard yelled. "I'm not speaking nonsense. I'm telling the truth." Sima Yu said, "You really caught the wrong people. Then do you know who set the fire?" Another guard asked. "I do." Sima Yu beamed at them. "Who?" "I did." She pointed at herself. The guards no longer bothered with her as they took the people they caught and wanted to leave. "Sigh, I'm speaking the truth. I really did set the fire." Sima Yu sighed, "That fire is so special, can just anybody use it?" The guards looked at Sima Yu with a different gaze. The treasury had been burned and the fire was strange, but nobody else knew about it. However, she did. Could it be that she really was the arsonist? However, she was so weak. How could she be the arsonist? Not to mention anything else, she couldn't even leave this barrier. However, Sima Yu didn't give them time to think. With a wave of her hand, she burnt the rocking chair that he was sitting on. The aura of the flame that had burnt down the treasury was the same. "It really was you." The guard immediately believed her. "It's impossible for you to have left the barrier." Someone else was still unconvinced. Sima Yu called out Little Roar and fused with him. With a light step, she went out of the barrier. They didn't expect her to be able to leave the barrier so easily, and the few guards hurriedly surrounded her. "Hurry and capture her. Send the remaining people back." The head guard instructed. "Don't touch me. I'll walk on my own." Sima Yu said to the guard who was about to touch her. Seeing that they were still about to come over, she glared at them and threatened, "If you're not afraid that I'll suddenly set you on fire, then you can come over." Thinking about the fire that was impossible to extinguish, the guards were so scared that they immediately took a step back. "Let's go." The head guard did not dare to touch her either as he said. Sima Yu smiled at the old man who was staring at her with his mouth wide open as she left with them. The old man watched her all the way till she rounded a corner. Thinking of the smile she had on as she left, he clicked his tongue. It was no wonder that when he saw her, there were great ripples that rose in his still heart. It turned out that she might actually be able to leave this accursed place. Sima Yu followed them into a courtyard as a few people sat inside. Sima Yu glanced at them. They were those undying old men. "You say that you're the one who set the fire?" The one sitting in the middle asked. "Yes." Sima Yu confessed boldly. "Why did you do it?" Sima Yu looked puzzledly at the one who asked her that question. In her eyes was unconcealed disdain. Her meaning was obvious. "Why would you people ask me such an idiotic question? You guys have locked me in here, but I can't even get mad?" She sneered, causing them to turn red with anger. "You are Sima Yu? That's right. If you don't want me to burn this place down, then you better let me go." Sima Yu huffed icily as she looked upwards, looking incredibly arrogant. "Humph, we'll just kill you first. How would you still be alive to set this place on fire?" "Pfft, do you dare?" Sima Yu said confidently, "If you dared to kill me, I would probably have died the moment I entered the door. Hao Ji gave you orders that nothing was to happen to me before you got my acupuncture methods, right?" Once she said this, the expressions of all in the house turned extremely ugly. She was right, Hao Ji did give them those orders. No matter what methods they used, they definitely had to obtain the acupuncture method that she possessed. When they saw her so happy and content, they were so infuriated that they wanted to spit blood. However, they really did not dare to kill her. Lock her away in the torture chamber. Tell them that they just have to leave her alive. The one who spoke first instructed. Do well and turn her into a lump of meat. One. Chop off her arms and legs, just make sure to leave her with her mouth. Lump of meat? Are you certain? Sima Yu's eyes shone and it chilled the heart of the one who spoke when he looked into her eyes. Alright, take her down. The one at the front waved his hands and his men immediately stepped forward. Sima Yu was unwilling to let them touch her, and just followed after them. Once she left, the one at the front immediately instructed, report this incident to the clan and ask Patriarch how he wants to settle it. Send these instructions to the torturers. They may torture her, but do not kill her before news comes from that side. Yes, Fifth Elder. The guard left upon receiving the orders. The one who had instructed for Sima Yu to be turned into a lump of meat stood up and said, Sima Yu is too slippery. I am worried, I'm going to take a look. 10th Elder, don't go too far. You have to leave her hands behind at least. The 5th Elder knew his personality well and warned him. I know. 10th Elder said as he disappeared from the room. Sima Yu saw that the 10th Elder had suddenly appeared behind them and she rolled her eyes, ignoring him. The 10th Elder walked over and said, I'm going to send you over personally. Sima Yu turned her head the other way, not deigning to give him a single glance. Humph, I hope that you'll be able to keep being arrogant in a moment. 10th Elder huffed icily. When he thought about how she would end up, his mouth hooked into a bloodthirsty smile. Didn't you say we were moving? Sima Yu said to a guard by the side. Don't you worry. They will send people over to pick you up. The 10th Elder said before turning to a guard by the side, feed her this medicine first. Yes, 10th elder. The guard took out a pill, thinking of stuffing it into Sima Yuyu's mouth. Sima Yuyu stretched forth her hand and took it. Then she placed it under her nose and sniffed it, saying, "You keep using this kind of poison every time. Don't you have any innovation?" Sima Yuyu pursed her lips. Under the watchful eye of every person here, she still ate it and even spat out a curse about how it tasted bad. Very quickly, she felt her head go faint and she landed on the ground. Those people just let her collapse on the ground without an ounce of compassion. The one who was lying on the ground pretending to be unconscious cursed silently. They waited for a moment as a ship slowly drifted over. A few guards carried a few people covered with wounds over and tossed them on the ground. Then they saw Sima Yuyu and said, "Just this one this time?" "She has already admitted to being the one who set the fire," Fifth Elder said. The guard explained the situation simply before warning, "Fifth Elder has warned that you guys are free to do whatever you want to her, but you definitely cannot kill her. Also, you have to leave her hands and mouth." Alright. I will go along with you guys. Why do you need to continue to prattle about here?" 10th Elder said impatiently. The guard secretly rolled his eyes. It was precisely because he was going that he would have to say so many things to the torturers. The torturer carried Sima Yuyu and turned around to get on the boat. 10th Elder followed them and they didn't say anything as they called for the boat to depart and it slowly left the island. Sima Yuyu was casually tossed onto the deck as he stood at the front of the ship, taciturn and silent. 10th Elder was familiar with his personality and didn't speak during the journey. They quickly arrived at the torture chamber. Sima Yuyu secretly started planning. This torture chamber was not considered to be very far from the place they were trapped on He Island. The little boat had traveled for around an hour. This torture chamber was definitely within the protective barrier, otherwise, they would not dare to travel by boat and there wouldn't be a lack of sea beasts. She was carried by that person to shore again and tossed into a stone house. It was no wonder they dared to toss her here. It turned out that these houses were all made of stone. She couldn't set them on fire at all. 10th Elder seemed to have done something but she ended up being left alone in the room with the torturer. "We're already here. Why are you still pretending to be unconscious?" The person's voice was pleasant to listen to. When Sima Yuyu heard what he said, she knew that she had been found out. Since they had already arrived in the torture room, there was no need to keep pretending. So, she opened her eyes to see an exceptionally sculpted face. Perhaps it was because he often lived his life in the darkness, but the person's face was rather pale. In contrast to his black clothes, he appeared even paler. Because he often messed around with extracted confessions via torture, he had the light smell of blood and a dense killing intent. She wasn't anxious from being discovered and she sat up and looked at him, asking, "When did you find out?" The male saw that there was no anxiety or fear in her gaze and his eyes shone, saying, "You acted well. However, the minute differences cannot escape my ears. Your breathing was a little lighter than the average unconscious person." Sima Yuyu didn't expect that his ears would be so powerful. She leaned on the wall and asked, "Since you found out from the beginning, couldn't you have tossed me down on the deck a little lighter?" The male was stunned as he said, "Wouldn't this have been more realistic?" He was helping her. "Why didn't you expose me?" "Why would I expose you? Aren't you afraid that I'll have plans to tear this place apart?" "Tear it apart then." His voice was light, but Sima Yuyu could sense his thick hatred. "Aren't you afraid that your clan will punish you?" Sima Yuyu asked. "When did I say that this was my clan? You're not from the Hao clan. I'm the same as these people. I've been trapped here too. It's just that I'm rather special because what these people had their eye on was my ability in this area." There was actually something like this. Sima Yuyu felt like this was something that was really out of her expectations. She actually thought that the person here was from the Hao clan. "You want to get me to rescue you?" she said confidently. The male didn't speak, neither did he deny what she said. "What is your name?" Sima Yuyu stood up and found that she had never encountered this kind of change before. "Su Yang." "Su Yang? The Su clan? Do you know Su Lunyan?" "You know Su Lunyan? She is my younger sister." Su Yang's voice never wavered but his voice actually sounded a little excited when he heard Su Lunyan's name. "You're her older brother? Why has she never mentioned you?" Sima Yuyu believed him somewhat because he did resemble Su Lunyan a little. It was no wonder she found him a little familiar earlier on. Su Yang didn't know what expression to give and his facial features shifted around. Although they only changed a little, when it all happened together, it resulted in a huge change. A face that was 70 to 80% similar to Su Lunyan's face appeared. "You." She suddenly saw that face on the male's face and was a little tongue-tied. "Su Lunyan and I are twins," Su Yang said. Previous chapter. Twins of the same gender didn't look alike compared to twins of the same gender. Many twins of different gender didn't look alike. It was hard to see one that looked alike like Su Lunyan and him. But he didn't show her for long. He turned over and changed his face back. "Have you taken a clear look at it?" His voice was still indifferent. Sima Yuyu pursed her lips. "Why are you so different from Aunt He?" Su Lunyan looked gentle while Su Yang looked indifferent. "Are you close with Lunyan?" Su Yang asked. Aunt He is nice to me. I never really communicated with the Su clan." "Oh, I know Su Yu too," Sima Yuyu said. "Su Yu? Is he fine?" "He's alright, he has a reputation outside." Sima Yuyu continued, "You and him. He's my son." Sima Yu had already guessed, so she wasn't surprised. She shot 2 glances at him while shaking her head. You guys are very different even though you're father and son. He looks like Aunt He. Seeing his dejected eyes, she didn't want to aggravate him so she asked, speaking of which, I've to address you as Uncle Yang. Uncle Yang, how long have you been here? 300 years, I guess. Do Aunt He and Su Yu know about it? Su Yang shook his head. I came in by chance without telling my families. Sima Yu wanted to ask why he helped her when he didn't even know her, but 10th Elder's voice was heard before she could ask. Sima Yu passed Su Yang a pill and threw some powder in the air. Su Yang ate the pills when he saw it. The smell of the powder that Sima Yu threw was actually very faint, no one could even smell it under the cover of the smell of blood. Su Yang, where's that little tramp? The 10th Elder asked once he came in. Su Yang ignored him after he took a glance at him. The 10th Elder wasn't angry at him, he turned his gaze at Sima Yu and laughed evilly. Little tramp, are you that capable? Burn it then. Can you burn it down too? As he was in charge of the treasury pavilion, he would be punished severely if she burnt it down. That was why he felt like killing her after seeing Sima Yu. However, he couldn't go against the clan's decision as they wouldn't allow it. Didn't the clan say as long as she lives? So he could play with her, as long as she still breathed. Initially, I wanted to turn you into a human meatball, but I have to keep your limbs, so I can't. But I thought of something better. After he spoke, he took out a blood-red net. I'll let you wear this in a while, it will then cut you into pieces. Every time I cut you in half, I'll give you pills to eat, you won't die this way, right? Once I'm done with one side, then I'll move on to the other so that you'll feel the pain. Oh, I can get someone to make meatballs out of your flesh, what do you think? Are you sure? Sima Yu didn't show any fear, she glanced at him with interest instead and shook her head after seeing that lean body. Humph, you have guts. It's not that I have guts, how can I turn down the decision you've made for yourself? Sima Yu said. What did you say? What did you do? The 10th Elder felt something wasn't right, he felt exhausted. He knew what happened to him since he had played with poison himself, he wanted to control his spiritual energy so that he would be able to control the poison but the poison flowed faster instead. The resistance in his body couldn't take it anymore as he fell to the ground. Sima Yu stood firm on the ground and said while looking at him, actually, I've always liked using poison, it's convenient and fast that I don't have to waste so much time. She admitted to poisoning him. Your interspatial ring has been taken away, how do you still have poison with you? The 10th Elder was in disbelief of what she said. Are you talking about this? Sima Yu took out an interspatial ring as she put it on her finger. It's impossible. Nothing is impossible. Sima Yu walked over as she gave him a kick and he fell to the ground immediately. What happened to Su Jin and Guliang was your doing, right? Who are you exactly? The 10th Elder realized that something was wrong, how did she know about Su Jin and Guliang? Who am I? Su Jin is my master, Guliang is my teacher. Sima Yu stooped over and took the net from his hand. What a nice silk from the silkworm that has become red from all the blood, looks like you use this a lot. She threw the net to Su Yang in disdain. I'll leave this guy to you, leave the ones outside to me. Su Yang caught the net and said, there are many people outside. Sima Yu smiled at him, I brought many people too. She turned around and walked out after she spoke. Su Yang looked at the net in his hands but he didn't go out as he remembered how confident she looked, he walked over to 10th Elder with the net in his hands. Sima Yu went out and called everyone out from Spirit Pagoda, she then opened up the little realm as she got Feng Xiang and the rest out. Aunt Xiang, I'll have to trouble you on this. Sima Yu told Feng Xiang. Feng Xiang and the rest were angry as they knew what she had been through in the Hao clan. Hao clan wasn't like that in the past, now that it has been inherited up to this date, it became such a dirty clan. Aunt Xiang, Hao clan has imprisoned many talents and even tortured my master and teacher for years. I don't want to let them go just like that. This kind of people can't be tolerated. Feng Xiang nodded in agreement to her method. But they have a few pinnacle paragon experts. Young miss, Feng Xiang was speechless as she looked at her, don't you know that we are all pinnacle paragon as well? What? Sima Yu was flabbergasted, they were all pinnacle paragons. Feng clan is a big clan that goes back to the dim and distant past, there are many pinnacle paragons. How can we be so weak when we've been chosen by the master to protect you? Sima Yu's jaw dropped. Although she knew that Feng Xiang's power was very strong, she didn't expect that they were the pinnacles of the pinnacles. Feng Ruyen was too nice to her. She wondered, would the pinnacle paragons be unhappy being her bodyguards? This was such a waste of talent. Young miss, we volunteered. Feng Xiang smiled as she could see her thoughts. Regardless if they volunteered, Feng Ruyan's order, they had to be willing to. Aunt Xiang, let's settle this jailer first. Sima Yu continued, we'll go fetch master and the rest when the torture room is destroyed. Sure. With Feng Xiang on the move, the people on the island were quickly finished. Sima Yu went back to the torture room as it was about time. Su Yang held a knife in his hand, the blade was as thin as a cicada's wings. No blood got on his blade as it started sinking into the flesh. Every piece of flesh he cut was very thin as he placed it on a plate neatly. Sima Yu thought that she might not eat any more meat in the near future. The 10th Elder laid on the floor, his eyes filled with hatred rather than the fear of death. Don't get too stirred up. Sima Yu walked over, many of your veins are broken, your blood flow will increase if you get too stirred up and it will make your heart work more, making your time of death nearer. I never expect that there will come a time when we'd be pecked by an eagle. The 10th elder said through gritted teeth. Have you heard that a long walk at night will lead you to ghosts? Sima Yu said faintly, you can't afford to provoke everyone. Do you think you are one? The 10th elder knew her status, she was only an outsider and couldn't even be ranked. Am I not? Sima Yu smiled, I'll let you have a taste of what it is like to meet your match. Humph, don't even try to think that you can do anything to my clan just because you've set a trap on me. You're nobody here. The 10th elder was very confident of his clan. I know, but I didn't say that I'll do it with my own hands. Sima Yu continued, you guys imprisoned and tortured so many talented people for so long, they will definitely take revenge without mercy. Pfft, those are only some of the talented in spirit realm. What are they when it comes to their power? Don't despise the power of anger. Anyway, you won't be able to see the day of your clan's destruction. Sima Yu said. At this time, Feng Xiang walked in and said, young miss, it's done. Got it. Sima Yu nodded to her. After seeing Feng Xiang, the 10th elder's eyes then showed fear. How can it be you? How dare Hao clan touch Feng clan's young Mississippi? Feng Xiang scoffed. She is a young miss of Feng clan? Impossible. She's only a member of a small clan from the outside, how can she be Feng clan's young miss? She is not from Feng clan. The 10th elder cried in horror. Humph, open up your eyes in your next life. Feng Xiang said, she then told Sima Yu, young miss, I heard that Hao clan collaborated with another clan. For safety purposes, I've contacted the clan on the other side. Thank you, Aunt Xiang. Sima Yu said gratefully. Feng Xiang smiled as she stood aside. Su Yang had never met anyone from the Feng clan, but when he heard of their names, he knew the Feng clan wasn't an ordinary clan as he saw the fearful look on the 10th elder's face. He shot a glare at Sima Yu. It was no wonder why she was so confident to get everyone out. Sima Yu walked over and squatted beside the 10th elder as she extended her hand asking for Su Yang's blade. Actually, I don't want you to die so quickly. She said unwillingly, but I have to get some information from here. Lucky for you. After she spoke, she stabbed the 10th elder's body with the blade. Su Yang didn't think that Sima Yu would really kill him. He wanted to speak but he saw that she lifted the body up and used her divine knowledge to get into his memories. After she got the information she wanted, she threw the body on the floor as she pulled out the blade from his body and passed it to Su Yang. This blade is quite good. It's nice if it's used to give punishment. Su Yang thought if he should thank her for the praise. Let's go. Sima Yu stepped over the body and went outside with Feng Xiang quickly following her. He didn't know who exactly this lady was, he would ask his younger sister if he left this place. For those people lying on the side, he stabbed them and sent them to hell while he was walking by. When they came out, they saw a group of pinnacle paragons, he was so shocked that he couldn't grip his knife properly. Actually, I feel like destroying this place with my own hands, but for the sake of not alerting the enemies, I'll forget about it. Sima Yu told Jiang Junxian. Su Jin and Guliang were injured here many times, so she really wanted to destroy this place. Master won't agree to this. Jiang Junxian continued, but we better get there fast, it will be a problem if they find out what happened here and try to hurt Master. Let's go. Sima Yu sighed. The boat can't take so many people. Su Yang said. And the place is too big. Sima Yu took out Little Realm for all of them to get in, leaving only Jiang Junxian, Han Miao Shuang and Su Xiao. A small boat was floating on the water when they came to the shore. They boarded the boat and rowed it towards the prison island. When they were almost there, Su Yang told them, we will be found out if we go up from here, I know of a secret place. Let's paddle over there. At this point of time, they were on the same team so they didn't need to worry that he would do anything funny. They started to row the boat to the place he mentioned. They quickly reached a bay and they didn't see any patrols when they flew in. How did you know about this? Aren't you always with them? Although Su Yang was responsible for the torture room, he always had someone beside him. They said it was for him to run errands but it was actually to keep a close watch on him. Once, someone escaped and we caught him here. I remembered this place from that time. Su Yang said. After so many years, have you ever given up on escaping? Su Yang said. Su Yang stared into the sea, he had never thought of staying here even though the Hao clan promised to give him a lot of benefits. Little junior sister, are we going to find Master? Han Miao Shuang asked. No. We're going straight to settle scores with the Hao clan. Sima Yu continued, I've already made arrangements for Master. However, Su Yang noticed that the place where Sima Yu was heading to wasn't Hao clan's residence. Where are we going? He asked. Doesn't Hao clan have a lot of treasure here? I'm going to destroy their resources. Sima Yu laughed. Destroying their resources? Su Yang thought to himself that this person was really ruthless after seeing Sima Yu smile. She was going to take drastic measures to deal with them so that they couldn't use this place anymore. Sima Yu followed the path in the 10th elder's memories and went to an ordinary courtyard at the border of the island. It's here? Are we not going in? Han Miao Shuang asked. Right after her last word. Ate for a while longer. Sima Yu said. Right after her last words, a deafening explosion sound came from the island where the torture room was. Previous chapter. After the third and fourth explosions went off, it was not only the Hao clansmen who had been stunned. Even Han Miao Shuang and the others were in a daze. Junior sister, were you the one who did that? Su Xiao asked blankly. Didn't you say that we shouldn't rattle the grass and startle the snake? Han Miao Shuang was bewildered as well. At that time, what I said was that I couldn't set the bombs off personally, which I really regret. I didn't say I wouldn't bomb the place. Sima Yu said, I released a few scarlet bees and got them to set the bombs off on my order. The thunderbolt bullets have been modified such that setting fire to them would do. The Hao clansmen have gone over. Over. Su Yang notified the few who were speaking to each other. It was not only the elders and guards of the Hao clan. There were 2 pinnacle paragon experts who had gone over as well. What are we going to do? What we are going to do is actually very simple. Sima Yu first called out Xiang Feng and the others, Auntie Feng, there will be a few people coming over soon. I'll have to trouble you all. No problem. Feng Xiang replied. Junior sister, you haven't said what we are. As Han Miao Shuang spoke, she saw her taking out little metal balls, so she swallowed the rest of her words and gleefully took them over. Do we have to set up a barrier? Otherwise, this entire island would be blown to smithereens. Sima Yu thought about it and felt like that was possible. Hence, she got Feng Xiang to set up a barrier and used it to control the power of the explosions. Do you want to come with us? Sima Yu handed a few thunderbolt bullets to Su Yang. What is this? How do I use it? Su Yang asked. Sima Yu told him how to activate the thunderbolt bullets. You use this to blow up the torture room? Su Yang asked with curiosity. That's right. Sima Yu stuffed a few more to him, then she flew into the sky and tossed a few to the courtyard below. Boom dash. The explosion turned the courtyard into a crater. Let me too. Han Miao Shuang tossed one down as well, blowing half the courtyard into non-existence. Su Xiao and Jiang Junxian tossed 2 down as well. It was Su Yang's first time playing around with this and he felt like it was pretty fun, so he tossed another 2 down. In a few moments, the entire courtyard had been blown into a wasteland. Ever since they tossed down the first thunderbolt bullet, a few pinnacle paragon experts had come over, wanting to kill them. However, before they got close, Feng Xiang and the others had stopped them. That was why Sima Yu and the others managed to play to their heart's content. Over where Hao clan's 5th elder was, the men who had been dispatched to the torture room had not yet sent information back to them before a similar situation happened to them. He led his guards and rushed over to see his own elders of his clan battling with others. As to how powerful the elders of his clan were, he was very clear. He never thought that the ones who had come would be able to beat them into a stalemate. No, the other party even seemed to have an advantage. Apart from this, there was another group of people who had surrounded the area, barring them from getting close. Furthermore, Sima Yu, who was supposed to be in the torture room, was leading a group of people in blowing up their core. Sima Yu, you dare. 5th elder bellowed, drawing Sima Yu's attention. She stopped and flew in front of the group, facing 5th elder directly. You were the one who blew up our torture room? 5th elder's expression was so dark that it couldn't have gotten any darker. Even if Sima Yu did not reply, he would have been able to guess by her voice. That's right. 5th elder was so enraged that he couldn't speak. This wretch. You want to kill me? The crossover. Just who on earth are you? Me? Aren't I your prisoner? Impossible. You did it on purpose. 5th elder finally realized why the island kept running into crises the moment she came. She definitely planned to come here. You guessed it. I did do it on purpose. I have yet to thank you for bringing me here. Otherwise, how could I have been able to find my master and the others? Your master. That's right. My master and teacher. Who are they? They're coming over. Sima Yu pointed at the people who were flying over from the residential area. The people who were trapped were all there, and the ones in front were Su Jin and Golang. How is that possible? 5th elder cried out. How were those people able to leave? There was no way they managed to break past the barrier. What is there that's impossible? Your barrier isn't invincible. As long as you have the key, why wouldn't they be able to leave? We have already confiscated their interspatial reigns, how could they? It was you. 5th elder glared at Sima Yu. He didn't need her to answer him. Her expression was all he needed to know that she had done it. Sima Yu called out Little Rock and got him to take Su Xiao and the others into the sky. She watched as those people collected their debts from the Hao clansmen. Before she had left Su Jin and the others, she gave the antidote she refined to Floey and the others and got them to pass it to Su Jin and Golang. Then, in the midst of the chaos she created, she released all the people who had been captured. Those people had been locked away for so long that their hatred towards the Hao clan had reached the skies. Once they regained their freedom, it was natural that they would come to collect their debts. Knowing that they had all come here, they naturally came over as well. It had to be said that they were not too powerful at this moment. However, they were fueled by their hatred and, along with the pressure that the Feng clan was exerting on the Hao clan, it would not be too difficult to take their revenge. Hence, there was no longer a need for her to participate at this point in time. She would let them vent as much as they wanted. After Feng Xiang and the others had gotten rid of the pinnacle paragon experts, they did not have to intervene anymore. They returned to Sima Yu's side and would only occasionally get involved when those people were not fighting a Hao clansman. After half an hour passed, there was no longer a single Hao clansman left alive on the island. It was only up to this point that those people finally believed that they had regained their freedom. Master. Sima Yu tossed Su Jin an interspatial ring. When Su Jin saw the items inside, he was filled with joy and distributed one to each person. At this moment, Sima Yu released a thick protective barrier to isolate them from the force of the explosions. Boom dash. Boom dash. Boom dash. Those people tossed those thunderbolt bullets onto the island and the force sunk the entire island. From this moment on, this place would no longer be their prison. There would no longer be anyone who would have to pass their dark lives in this tiny little place. Those people who had already given up on being able to escape, watched as the island slowly sank into the sea with red eyes. A few women even sobbed audibly. They would no longer be trapped here. Sima Yu waited for them to calm down a little before speaking. If you guys continue to be so excited, we won't be able to return today anymore. The Hao clan over at that side has already received the news, and I'm guessing that they're already lying in wait to ambush us on the way back. I'm afraid that it won't be able to cross these waters. The Hao clan has imprisoned you for so many years, do you want to take your revenge? Yes. Previous chapter. After being locked away for so many years and exploited for such a long time, the torture they faced on their bodies and minds were not something that 2 or 3 sentences could extinguish. Deep in their hearts, the pain, the hatred, all the years that they had wasted, they definitely had to collect this debt from the Hao clan and make them pay with their blood. However, this place isn't easy to go to. Someone said, there are many ferocious sea beasts in the waters. If we want to leave this place, we will still have to depend on you for help. Earlier on, they had seen Feng Xiang and the others battle with the elders of the Hao clan. If Feng Xiang and the others were willing to get involved and help them, they would definitely be able to leave this place smoothly. Since I've rescued you guys, I will naturally not leave you here. Furthermore, the Hao clan is a large one. We will need everyone to work hard together to defeat them. Sima Yu said to everyone. Dare we ask, honorable young miss, for your name? In the future, we will be able to repay you. I am called Sima Yu. However, I merely exerted a bit of effort, and it is not worth your repayment. However, if you meet the Sima clan from the 64th state and those from Heartbreak Valley, if there is anything that they do wrong, I'll beseech your magnanimity. Sima Yu bowed towards them. It is getting late, shall we make our move? Do you have flying beasts? Some of them had them, some did not. However, everyone managed to get on a flying beast after some grouping. Sima Yu did not ask Feng Xiang and the others to return. Instead, she got them to walk with her at the front. There were too many sea beasts in the waters below. With them leading the way, the beasts would still hesitate somewhat. Of course, they also encountered those who were undisciplined and out of control. This time, the main group of sea beasts were those that went in groups and depended on the strength of their numbers. After traveling continuously for a few days, they finally saw the lost place. Sima Yu led them directly to the Hao clan. It was all thanks to Helmsman Tuo's map and she didn't lead them in the wrong direction. When they saw the Hao clan's residence, everyone felt their rage bubble up again. They couldn't hold themselves back from wanting to exterminate them all. Don't be rash. Sima Yu called them to a stop and handed them some thunderbolt bulleters. There are many of them, so let's just use this first to deal with the main group. We'll slowly attack the remaining ones. Many thanks. After everyone had received their thunderbolt bullets, they flew into the sky and tossed some down towards the Hao clan's residence. During the explosions, half the residence had been destroyed. The higher ranks of the Hao clan had already received information that something was happening here. However, they didn't expect that they would be able to come here so quickly, so they were caught unprepared. As for the younger generation who were not informed of the situation and were unprepared, many of them had died in the calamity. By the time the Hao clan managed to react and they flew up into the sky to face them directly, their might had already been cut by half. The clans that managed to react quickly hurriedly set up protection arrays. If they were not in the heart of the battle, the arrays were sufficient to protect them. Go and see what's happening. How did the Hao clan end up fighting with the outsiders? When did so many outsiders appear on our island? The people of Black Tortoise City were incredibly surprised, but some had secretly guessed what happened. They had long since heard of what the Hao clan had been doing to outsiders. It turns out that this was true. Based on the Hao clan's abilities, those people had been locked away and should not have been able to escape. Otherwise, this would not have been able to go on for a few hundreds of years. When they saw the army of them, they guessed that the people who had been locked away had managed to escape. Suddenly, everyone realized that within that group, there were a few relatively familiar faces. The ones who they had the deepest impressions of were Sima Yu, Su Jin and Gulang. Su Jin and Gulang had not participated in the Crimson Pearl Convention too long ago. Because it was the first time that outsiders had won against the people on the island, everyone had a deep impression of them. As for Sima Yu, it went without saying that the competition had only ended a few days ago. Patriarch Wu saw that Sima Yu was with Gulang and thought to himself that she actually managed to find the person she was looking for. She just wondered how they had managed to escape. It seemed as if all the Hao clansmen had been activated. Those old coots had been held up by Feng Xiang and the others, but there were still many of the others. Yu, if this goes on, everyone will lose. Hurry and take those 3 guys with you and run away. Sima Yu thought about it, then retreated to the side to open her little realm. She called out the stronger ones from Blood Fiend City to come and help. Damn, how did more people appear? With the addition of the people from Blood Fiend City, the pressure on the outsiders had lessened considerably and they finally had the chance to catch their breath. However, before they had the opportunity to celebrate, there was a sudden movement in the air and a group of people came out from the spatial tunnel, going over to help the Hao clan direct. Sima Yu had no idea which city and power the other party was from, but they had actually come over at this point in time to help the Hao clan, which meant that they were not any decent power. Hence, she didn't hold back when she dealt with them. In the beginning, both sides were still able to fight each other into a stalemate. However, once the other clan came over to help, the situation changed with the addition of the few pinnacle paragon experts. They were probably the people who had received the Hao clan's cry for help and knew that Sima Yu had many experts with her, so they directly brought all their experts as well. As such, the experts from the other party managed to suppress Feng Xiang and the others. Just as the outsiders were being pushed back, someone thought of using the opportunity to push Sima Yu back, only to be burnt into a pile of ashes by the flames that suddenly poured out of her. Screech dash. After a long screech, the divine vermilion bird appeared in front of Sima Yu. It circled around Sima Yu, burning all the people around her into ashes. Divine vermilion bird? Those who were watching the show did not simply just watch anymore. As areas that focused heavily on the divine clans, as long as they were from the 4 main cities, they would know how important of a position the vermilion bird, azure dragon, white tiger and black tortoise held. They had always thought that the 4 great divine beasts had already disappeared, but they didn't expect that there would be a day where they would be able to see them with their own eyes, especially the power that had come to help. When they saw the vermilion bird, they were immediately stunned. This vermilion bird isn't that powerful, everyone, there's no need to be afraid. One group, hold the vermilion bird back. The 2 of you, go and attack that child. As long as she dies, the vermilion bird will die as well. The way things had unfolded today meant that there was no way they could turn back. When those 2 pinnacle paragon experts received the instruction, they immediately attacked Sima Yu. Although she had grown quite a bit, she was still relatively weak. The attacks of 2 pinnacle paragon experts were not something she could withstand. Their spirit attacks landed in front of her in the blink of an eye. She had been rooted to the spot by the 2 pinnacle paragon experts and had no way to move at all. This was the advantage of absolute power. No matter how you schemed and plotted, in the face of power, you could only be oppressed. Sima Yu suddenly recalled the tight spot that Lin and the others had told her about before. If she was destined to face this calamity, would this be the day? If she died, would her fathers and the others be devastated? She already saw the bloodshot eyes of her father and master, their distorted expressions and heard their despondent and helpless cries. Actually, she really wanted to tell them that she would be fine. Wu Lingyu had arranged for an old coot to remain by her side. In this world, there wouldn't be a single person who would be able to take her life. However, while she moved her lips, her voice did not come out. Sigh dash. An unfamiliar voice sounded beside her ear as she felt someone grab her shoulder. 1 second before that spirit energy touched her, someone whisked her away. All this happened in a split second. Everyone thought that she was already destined to die, but they didn't expect that she would actually appear somewhere else. When they managed to see who the person who saved her was, everyone was stunned. Even Sima Yu. She wasn't familiar with this person, but she had met him before. At that time, it was even an unhappy encounter. That was because he merely huffed once before he almost took Fatty Chu's life. How could it be you? Where's little two? She looked suspiciously at the person who had held her up like a little bird. The person released her and snorted, "You thought that I wanted to do it? Big sis." A familiar voice sounded beside her. Joy burst forth on Sima Yu's expression as she lifted her head to see a grown-up little two flying over from the back. Little two. She flew over and grabbed little two's arm. She didn't think that she would be able to meet him here. At this point in time, after meeting her master, this was another thing to celebrate. Little two had already grown up and looked like a male over 20 years of age. He also looked a lot more handsome than before. However, his frame was still the same as when he was young. "Big sis, are you okay?" Little two grabbed onto her arm and pulled her over to take a look at her. That situation earlier almost scared the life out of him. It was a good thing that he had managed to come over in time and got his clan elder to save her. "I'm alright." Sima Yu patted his hand and said, "What are you doing here? I knew that you had come over here and was afraid that something would happen to you, so I came to look for you. It's a good thing that I managed to rush over." Little two said joyfully, "How did you know that we were here?" Sima Yu nodded. "Did you look for Bei Gong and the others?" "I first went to look for big sister Bei Gong and the others, then got to know that you went to the Sima clan, so I went to the Sima clan. In the end, I heard them say that you came here instead. This place was not that far from where we lived. If I knew earlier that you were here, I would not have had to run around so much." Little two said with a smile. "How were they willing to let you out? Bei Gong and the others?" "Forget it, this is not the time to chat. Once we're done with this, we'll have a good long talk." Sima Yu realized that this was truly not a good time to catch up. If they were careless, they would be defeated. "Alright, let's talk after we get rid of them." Little two pulled Sima Yu as he spoke and entered the fray. Sima Yu realized that Little two was more powerful than she was. It seemed like her bloodline had already been fully released and it was even very powerful. After thinking about it carefully, this actually came as no surprise. The last time they met, based on the conversation that the person had with Feng Ruyen, they knew each other. Was anyone who was familiar with the Honorable Master, Feng Ruyen, possibly a small fry? However, even with the addition of Little Two and his clan elder to the fray, it didn't seem to change the balance of power between the two parties and this side was still weaker. At this time, the Wu clan had led their clan elders and older ones to join the battle. However, it was not to help the Hao clan but to help Sima Yu and the others. At this point of time, they did not have strength in numbers but they were powerful. Although there were not many Wu clansmen who joined in, they definitely managed to suppress the power of the Hao clan to a certain degree. "Those named Wu, what are you doing?" Hao Ji shouted at Patriarch Wu. "Those named Hao, can't you tell? We're here to hit you while you're down." Patriarch Wu's words almost made Sima Yu fall to her knees. "You guys have done so many shady things, how could we let you ruin the feng shui of our island? We're going to purify the tumor of this island, everyone." "Oh Patriarch, even if you wanted to loot a burning house, was there a need to make it so obvious?" "Humph, you named Wu, you wish to exterminate my Hao clan so you can monopolize Black Turtle City? That depends on whether you have the ability. You want to do it, but can you really? Be careful not to suffer a double loss instead." After saying this, Hao Ji took out something that looked like a crystal ball and raised it high above his head. When the people saw what he had taken out, they were shocked. The Wu clansman retreated to the side as well. Patriarch Wu's expression was extremely dark. Hao Ji, you actually obtained this item. Ha ha ha, you named Wu, didn't you want to step in and help these guys and take the chance to suppress us? Do you dare to do so now? The crystal ball shone brilliantly with a myriad of colors as it was in the air and looked extremely pure and holy as well as mystical. However, to the islanders, it was of extreme importance. What is that? Sima Yu asked. Those from the Hao clan retreated and both parties were temporarily in a deadlock. However, seeing the expressions of those from the Hao clan, it was as if Sima Yu's side was doomed to die. This is the pentacolored stone, a kind of spirit stone that is found deep in the island. It can affect the spirit energy of others, especially outsiders. Patriarch Wu explained. Sima Yu looked at the Ross it was emitting. It really did restrict the spirit energy on her body somewhat. She guessed that it had something to do with why outsiders were unable to cultivate on this island. It seemed like this situation was rather difficult. If they were unable to use their spirit energy, were they supposed to be helpless in the face of the islanders? She raised her head and looked into the sky. Feng Xiang and the others were fighting up there, and judging by the situation, it seemed like they wouldn't be able to settle the situation anytime soon. When she thought about this, the aura on her body slowly began to change and she released the aura of the Feng clan. When those rays touched her body, she really did not feel as bad as she did before. So this works as well. She moved her hands and smiled lightly at Hao Ji. Before Hao Ji registered what that smile meant, she disappeared from her original position. It seemed like she immediately appeared in front of Hao Ji. When he wasn't paying attention, she got close and attacked him. In a short moment, she managed to snatch the pentacolored stone and immediately retreated back to where she once was. How could this be? Hao Ji saw the aura that she released and his face immediately fell. How could you be from the Feng clan? Feng Xiang and the others immediately took to the skies when they came, so Hao Ji and the others did not realize their identities. Now that they saw Sima Yu release the aura of the Feng clan, their expressions changed again and again. If she was part of the Feng clan. Thinking about this possibility, Hao Ji subconsciously trembled. Impossible, how could she be from the Feng clan? Hao Ji's mind rejected this terrifying possibility. Crimson Flame. Sima Yu tossed the pentacolored stone to Crimson Flame. Crimson Flame crushed it with his hand and the pentacolored stone turned into rainbow powder. The suppression they felt on their bodies immediately disappeared. How could that be? How could they have provoked someone like her? Hao Ji, we no longer have any other path we can take. Just what are you doing? If the Feng clan found out about this, we would be finished. The ones who came to help the Hao clan shouted at him. Hao Ji came back to his senses. That was right, the arrow was already notched in the bow and there was no turning back. Even if they let Sima Yu off today, would she just let things go? Of course not. That was why his only choice was to keep her here forever. Kill. Don't leave a single one alive. He ordered. Who dares to touch our young miss? More movement came from the air and a portal was split through space. Then, 1,000 Feng clansmen walked out from inside. This battle force terrified every single person on sight. Young Mississippi. Those people bowed to Sima Yu. Sima Yu saw that Fong and Yuan were leading the charge and said with a bit of shock, what are the both of you doing here? His honor heard that something was happening here and initially wanted to come here personally. However, he was refining a batch of extremely important pills so he got them to come over. Fong said as he glanced at those people. They didn't do anything to you, did they? Apart from trying to kill me, they didn't do anything. Sima Yu stretched forth a hand to pat Fong's head. His honor said that your lives were too smooth in the lost place and had already forgotten your roles here. You even dare to act against the young miss of our Feng clan? You really are tired of living. Yuan said, Feng clan, heed my order. All those who had tried to harm young miss are to be killed without pardon. Understood. The Feng clansmen surrounded the Hao clan as well as the ones who came to support them. As they were about to attack them, someone rushed over as well. Hey, don't be so exaggerated. Kid, didn't you say you wouldn't sink my island? When Sima Yu heard that voice, she couldn't help but purse her lips. She saw Helmsman Tua and Shrine Maiden, and shrugged helplessly. Helmsman Tua only stopped when he was beside Sima Yu. He said, Kid, it wasn't enough that you messed around in Vermilion Bird City, but you had to come and overturn Black Tortoise City as well? When did I? Sima Yu rolled her eyes at him. If they didn't provoke me, I wouldn't have done anything. If you want to mediate this dispute without principles, then for all these things that the Hao clan has done, don't you think you should give these people a proper account? Who said that I was going to mediate? Helmsman Tua smiled, I'm asking you to hold back a little. The young miss of our Feng clan has no need to hold back. Fong, who was standing by the side, huffed coldly. It's just a tiny little clan, but it dares to kill our young Mississippi Helmsman Tua. You should thank your lucky stars that his honor did not give the orders to sink your island directly. Yuan added on. Lucky. I'm very lucky. Helmsman Tua said with a smile. Island Master Tua, let's not waste words. Just why have you come all the way here? If you are here to absolve the Hao clan of their crimes, then forget it. Even if I wanted to let them off, these people who have been locked away for so many years are unwilling. Although we are outsiders, it shouldn't be wrong for us to take revenge if it is owed. Sima Yu said solemnly. I can ignore the Hao clan, but you can leave the rest for me to punish. They were not directly involved in this anyway. Helmsman Tua said. Sima Yu looked at Su Jin then looked at the others. She was in a bit of a tough spot. Actually, she didn't care much about it. After all, the only ones who had done anything to her were the Hao clan. However, she didn't know how the others felt. Helmsman Tuo was the island master after all and had even helped her before. Although it was after she had paid him a large sum of money, she couldn't ignore that fact. Those people saw that Sima Yu was troubled and said, Lady Yu, we definitely cannot let the Hao clan go. However, we don't care about the others. We believe that the island master will give us a proper account. That's right, we believe you. When the Hao clansmen heard what they said, they were infuriated while the other clansmen heaved a sigh of relief. At the very least, their lives would be preserved. Attack! Fong Fong gave the order and the Fong clansmen attacked every single person who they had surrounded. The Hao clan was exterminated under the eyes of every single person here. Up until this point, those people finally understood that there were people in this world that they could not offend. If they were the ones who had offended her, wouldn't they have died here today? Throughout this entire ordeal, Helmsman Tua and Shrine Maiden didn't make a single move. When it was over, Sima Yu still didn't forget to remind everyone to go to the Hao clan to find some comfort. As such, after this, the Hao clan was plundered completely with nothing left behind. Shortly after, Feng Xiang and the others returned from the sky. The Hao clansmen had all been killed, but they had also suffered rather serious injuries. Young miss, since the issue has been settled, we shall return as well. Fong Fong said, Feng Xiang and the others have been injured, so we will leave some guards with you. Sima Yu wanted to tell them that there was no need, but she saw that they were resolute and couldn't say anything. In any case, Feng Xiang and the others wanted to remain as well, so a few more could stay as well. Fong Fong got a few of the stronger ones to remain behind. Then, Yuan took everyone back. The Feng clan did not like getting involved in these kinds of things, which was a habit that they had from the past. Right now, with the identity of the Feng clan, there was nobody on the island who would dare to touch her. Unless their brains were mush and they wanted to end up like the Hao clan did. Island Master Tua, didn't you head out to play? Why did you return? As the others plundered the Hao clan, Sima Yu went to chat with Helmsman Tua. Our boat was already outside and we heard that you went missing. Isn't that why we rushed back? In the end, who would have expected to see something like this the moment we returned? Helmsman Tua felt speechless as well. I didn't think that you had this kind of background. It seems like I didn't see things clearly enough. Sima Yu didn't think that he initially returned because she had gone missing. It seemed like she wasn't too close to him, right? Why would he protect her so much from the beginning? Don't look at me like that. I'll think that you are falling for me. Helmsman Tua touched his face, incredibly narcissistic. She kind of wanted to slap him and tell him that his narcissism was an illness and he had to treat it. After thinking about it, she decided to hold it in and asked him what she was thinking. Why do I take care of you? Do I? Helmsman Tua laughed, if you feel embarrassed, you can pay me some crystals. Sima Yu. Helmsman Tua laughed as he went to settle the remaining things. There were some things that he couldn't say and had no way to say. Sima Yu went to look for Patriarch Hao, wanting to thank him. No matter for what reason, he did help her in the end. If not because he had led the Wu clansmen to help her hold them back for a while, she would not have been able to hold on until their backup came. Welcome. However, I believe that you would have been fine even without our intervention. Elder Wu smiled as she waved his hands. Although he looked at Sima Yu in a different light, he did not flatter her and was magnanimous. Sima Yu rather liked his attitude and chatted with him a bit more. Only then did she say that she had to leave to take care of some matters. Little Tu had always been nearby. When he saw that she had finished her chat with Patriarch Wu, he hurriedly dashed over. Done chatting? Let's leave the things here to them. Let's find a place to catch up. Sima Yu pulled Little Tu along and found a quiet place to chat. Before they left, they saw a group of people flying over to her excitedly. Little Tu stood in front of her, looking suspiciously at those people who had come over. He did not let them get close to Sima Yu. Sima Yu looked at his wide back and remembered the time when he was young and said that he would definitely become strong and protect them. Her mouth lifted into a smile and her eyes glistened. Who are you? Little Tu asked with an icy expression. We. If he had spoken to them like this before, those people would have gotten angry long ago. However, she was now one of them and they could not get angry at her. We are here to look for Lady Yu. An elder said. Sima Yu patted and pulled at Little Tu's clothes, so he stepped to the side. She looked at Tao Yixian and said, Yixian, what are you guys doing here? The elder was stunned. She recognized Tao Yixian. Tao Yixian stepped forward and bowed to Sima Yu, saying, these are the various patriarchs from Vermilion Bird City. We heard that the Vermilion Bird had appeared, so we came to give our greetings. The Vermilion Bird has always been our guardian divine being. Sima Yu knew that they definitely had a relationship with the Vermilion Bird from the name of their city. However, she was rather interested in this. After asking Crimson Flame and receiving an affirmative reply, she said to them, Crimson Flame has agreed to meet you guys. You can tell him whatever it is you want to say. After saying this, she called out Crimson Flame and then pulled Little Tu away. She had no interest in whatever Crimson Flame was going to say. She wanted nothing more than to have a good long conversation with Little Tuesday. They came to the seaside, which was rather far from the clamor of Black Tortoise City. The beach was golden and the tide waved under the warm sunlight. It was perfect for reminiscing. They stepped onto the beach, leaving behind 2 long footprints. How has life been for you? Sima Yu did not forget her helplessness back then when Hua Bin had taken him away. We're doing pretty well, especially since Supreme Fifth Spirit Senior came to look for us recently. We've become a lot stronger. Sima Yu was taken aback. Supreme Fifth Spirit Senior? What would he be doing with them? He and the Antiquity Divine Ape clan have some links in bloodline, so. Sima Yu understood now. The Antiquity Divine Ape clan and Supreme Fifth Spirit Senior were from the same ape clan, so it was only natural that they would be related. She just didn't expect that Supreme Fifth Spirit Senior would look for the Divine Apes. Supreme Fifth Spirit Senior has a special identity. You have to be more careful. Do not let them grasp a loophole. She instructed. We know. It's also because it's you that I said it. Little Two said with a smile. That smile was as radiant as it was before. Seeing that he understood, she didn't say much more as she changed the topic. Has your bloodline been completely aroused? When we returned to the clan, they helped me release my bloodline. I no longer have the bloodline of humans anymore. When he talked about this, Little Two felt a little gloomy. He didn't want to let go of his human bloodline, but the damned elders of the clan had insisted. Ever since he was young, he had thought of himself as human. Now that he was completely a spirit beast, he was unable to reconcile himself with that fact yet. So what if you're human or spirit beast? You are still you. Sima Yu patted his shoulders, telling him not to think too much about it. As long as you don't find me strange, I don't care about anyone else. Little Two replied. However, I'm sure you guys won't abandon me. When the others abandoned me, you guys never treated me like I was strange. You were so cute when you were young, how could I have found you strange? Sima Yu said with a smile, you're older now and you're not as cute as you were before. Why don't I turn back into how I was before? Forget it, I'll get used to it after I look at you a few more times. Sima Yu said, right, when you went to visit Bei Gong and the others back then, were they still doing alright? They were pretty alright. They found some fortuitous encounters earlier and they grew a lot more powerful than before. Especially Big Brother Fatty. After being provoked, his strength grew a lot. They said that, once everyone stabilizes their strength, they will come and look for you. Little Two said, however, I feel like it's more likely that you'll go back to visit them. I'll go and take a look the next time I return. Sima Yu said, it's also about time for me to return back for a look. Without knowing, she had already left Heartbreak Valley for almost 10 years. She wondered how everyone was doing. Time was, to a cultivator, something that passed by too quickly. Han Miao Shuang and the others knew that she had a lot of things to say to Little Two, so they didn't call her over even when something happened over where they were. It was Crimson Flame who went to look for her shortly after. He didn't say much as he returned directly to the Spirit Pagoda. Once she and Little Two returned, Black Tortoise City had already returned to its everyday life. The Hao clan had turned into a topic for conversation as well as old news. Those from Vermilion Bird City had been dispersed by Crimson Flame, so they didn't look for her either. Shortly after she returned, Su Jin and the others came to look for her. They told her that everyone wanted to meet her, then they prepared to leave the place. This island gave them too many bad memories. Sima Yu initially didn't want to meet them. However, she thought about how it would be good karma. Nobody would complain about having too many friends. As such, she decided to meet them and spoke some cursory words. She got to know their identities and how to look for them and things like that. Many of those people were from large powers and had high statuses. After knowing that the Paramount Valley was emerging within the inner regions, they said that they would pop in whenever they had the time. With these things, it would be much easier for Paramount Valley to conduct their businesses. After their conversation, by the time everyone left, half the day had already gone by. The others had already left but the old man still remained in the courtyard. Sima Yu saw that he had stayed behind so she asked him, puzzled, Grandpa, why are you still here? Didn't we already agree that I would head to Paramount Valley once I left that place? The old man said. Sima Yu chuckled, saying, Grandpa, don't tease me. Wasn't it because I didn't know your identity before? You're the deputy master of 100 Changing Doors. How dare I really invite you to join me there? Su Jin was the one who told her about this old man's identity. After she found out, she was shocked. It could be considered that they were brought together by fate. This item belongs to you, they gave me the original copy and I can't give it to you, but I made a copy of it. I hope you don't mind. Sima Yu handed the old man a tablet rubbing. Previous chapter. Next chapter. Report. The little old man picked up the rubbing and was stunned. Why is this book with you? The little old man asked. This was given to me when I was a child. Sima Yu said apologetically. Back then, Wu Lingyu investigated his ancestor. She couldn't tell him that. Big Wei and Little Wei wanted me to give it to you. Now I am returning it to you. You know Big Wei and Little Wei? The little old man had been imprisoned for so long. He didn't know many things outside, nor did he understand her connection with 100 Changing Doors. They used to stay in the Heavenly Sect for some time. I'm a student there. Sima Yu didn't say any more. The little old man put away the rubbings. 100 Changing Doors arrays were not as good as before. With this, they would be more perfect. This was also the current pursuit of 100 Changing Doors. He saluted Sima Yu. It's not enough to say thanks for your kindness. If there's any help you need, you can ask 100 Changing Doors. Sima Yu pulled him up and smiled. If I need help, I won't be courteous. With her words, the little old man left without worry. There were still some master and disciples left in the courtyard. Master, we should prepare to leave. Sima Yu suggested. You have been missing for so long. Instructor Mao and Principal Fan are worried. Sure, I don't want to stay on the island any longer. Su Jin felt depressed when he recalled those unpleasantries. Is Principal Yuan back in the sect? Gu Lang asked. Sima Yu recalled that Yuan Xiaojia was not there. Isn't Principal Yuan with you? Su Xiao asked. No. Though we left the sect together, we separated later. When we arrived here, he said he had something to do. Gu Lang and Su Jin looked at each other. It was obvious they thought of something. Master, what happened to Principal Yuan? Han Miao Shuang inquired. It's not easy to explain. Su Jin replied. With that old fellow's personality, there shouldn't be any problems. True, otherwise, Instructor Mao and them would let us know since we came to find Master. Since they didn't say anything, Principal Yuan must have sent the news back. Jiang Junxian deduced. Sima Yu felt the same, so they put Yuan Xiaojia at the back of their minds. Since they made the decision to leave, everyone did not delay. No one wanted to stay behind to bid farewell. They went straight on board the ferry. Unexpectedly, a large ship appeared with Tua Xiaogong and the Shrine Maiden on deck. Sima Yu glanced at Tua Xiaogong and pursed her lips. Are you here to be the boatsman again? What, you don't believe in my ability? Tua Xiaogong said with a drawn face. Sima Yu rolled her eyes. It's not that I don't believe in your ability to row, but in your ability to deceive people. I don't have many crystals for you anymore. Ha ha ha, Tua Xiaogong chuckled. I won't charge your crystals this time. Really? Of course. Tua Xiaogong smiled. Come on up. The other guy is sending other people. Now there's only my boat available. Sima Yu discovered that this ship was smaller than the previous one, but it also looked more delicate. When they were on aboard, Tua Xiaogong ordered the boat to start. I thought you're personally going to take the helm. Sima Yu pouted. Last time it was for fun, this time, I wanted to leave myself. Tua Xiaogong grunted. You were by convenience. He laid on the rocking chair, resting his head on his hands. He was at leisure. No wonder you didn't charge us. Sima Yu walked up to him and sat down on the deck. I charged very reasonably. Tua Xiaogong smiled. How reasonable, they aren't even used. It's not used now, doesn't mean it won't be used in the future. What do you mean? Sima Yu asked. Some things are not of face value. You will know how important the thing I gave you in the future. Tua Xiaogong finished and closed his eyes while basking in the sun. Sima Yu wanted to ask him what he meant by this and what he was hinting at. But when she saw how comfortable he was in the sun, she knew he wouldn't say anything if she asked again. Tua Xiaogong didn't say anything anymore even until they reached ashore. Tua Xiaogong sent them off without saying anything, patted his butt and left. Sima Yu wanted to kick him so much. They actually know about each other, was it necessary to be so arrogant? Besides, didn't he say he was going to travel outside? Why didn't he disembark? How is this place ever going to change? I'm going to visit somewhere else. If we're fated, we might meet again. Sima Yu and the group stood on the shore. She found that the direction he was heading was not the direction he was returning to. What does he mean by this? Han Miao Shuang asked. Sima Yu was also confused and shook her head. They left together. Because the most urgent matters were resolved, she was relieved. She didn't rush on the way. First, someone had sent a message to Instructor Mao and them. As the group went back, they enjoyed the scenery, chatted and relaxed on the way. By the time they returned to the Sima residence, half a year had passed. Everyone in Sima family was thrilled to see them return. Sima Qing stared at Sima Yu and then nodded, there was really nothing that could stop you. Sima Yu rubbed her nose. Did her ancestor underestimate her? How long will you stay this time? Sima Ji Yuan asked. Just rest for a while. Sima Yu replied. I have to accompany Master and them back to the sect, and go to Paramount Valley. The marriage of Fenger and Xiang Yi had been delayed for too long. They wanted me to come back before they married. You have been running around for these things over the years. It's okay to go out to relax. Sima Hishan said. But be careful. I know. After returning to the family, she revitalized the family, healed Feng Ruyan's old illness, went to the ancient clan for the divine medicine for Sima Lu Xian, and then went to the lost place to rescue her master. She had done most of the pressing matters in her heart. If there was anything she was worried about now, that was she hadn't found her mother and their family hadn't been reunited. Well, although she was worried about Wu Lingyu's side of things, she believed in his ability to resolve it. In order to find her mother, she had to go to the ghost realm. With her current strength it was difficult to go. Was it really necessary to wait until she advanced? She wanted to use Mo's method, but she was hesitant on whether to use it. What kind of situation would she face when she goes there? Was Deja ready over there? Previous chapter.